Hi, welcome to the BariNation podcast, where we support the bariatric community with humor, humility, and honesty. I'm April.
I'm Jason.
I'm Natalie.
And if you're watching, you already know who's joining us. It is our friend, BariNation expert, Miss Jody.
Hi. I'm so excited to be here.
I know. This is the first time you've been on the podcast, which is a little bit odd, but
first time I've been on any podcast, so go easy on me, you guys.
Nope. Trial by fire, baby. That's what it is.
That's how we do things here at BariNation. Hi, hello, welcome.
Here's everything all at once.
All at once.
Okay, so here I'll just take over. I'll do the whole thing.
There you go. We're done. Jody's now.
I'm telling you, it's kind of how it works around here. Oh my goodness. Well, Miss Jody, we're very excited to talk to you today. We have gotten to know you for quite some time now as an expert creator in BariNation. Well, first as a fellow bariatric patient on Instagram, doing the bariatric thing, doing the yogi thing. You joined us as an expert, as a movement expert, and your yoga classes, your breathwork classes are some of our highest attended, right, movement opportunities. People love them. You've taken on a leadership role now in BariNation, and you're really blossoming into this like bariatric yogi guru. You launched your own retreat. You've got a lot going on, girl.
Yeah, life is crazy.
Life is crazy, which is kind of what we want to talk to you about today, because our theme this spring is springing forward, right? How do we move forward in our bariatric journeys? And you have a lot going on right now in your personal and your professional life, right? Lots of moving pieces. Yet you are still finding a way to move forward, right? Or you're kind of redefining what it means to spring forward. And in a lot of ways, you're kind of showing us how to take that straight piece of metal and actually turn it into a coil so that you can use that to propel yourself forward. So that's what today's conversation is really going to be all about. We're excited to learn how you're doing that.
I'm so excited to talk about this. This is a great topic. This is very exciting, but yes.
I agree. And I think like we were talking before we hit record, springing forward can mean so many different things in people's lives. And I think when we hear this term, we think about like massive change and we've got all this energy and we're going to spring, big leaps forward. But that really isn't the case, right? Spring doesn't just all of a sudden poof appear and all the flowers are fully bloomed, right? Like it starts underground months before you actually see anything start to bloom and blossom. And you have been doing a lot of that underground work. So yeah, learning about that is what this conversation is all about. Before we jump in though, I would love to give you the floor. Will you introduce yourself to our friends and followers and watchers that don't know you?
Absolutely. Well, yes. Hello, I'm Jody. Hi, everyone. It's really great to not see you, but talk to you. I'm a bariatric patient. I had gastric bypass in February of 2021. It was a wild ride. I had some complications that took me out. I was bedbound for a few months there. And we got through it, full recovery. I became a yoga teacher, was one of my kind of accomplishments and one of my dream things that I had in the back of my head when I was pre-op and thought I would just never be able to do that. And I recently quit my full-time job to pursue not only yoga, but also to help out with BariNation with as much time as I have to give, because it's made such a huge difference in my journey moving forward in a day-to-day, because, it's funny that we're talking about springing forward and you're saying, that coil metaphor, kind of tuning it back, because what I've noticed with moving forward is it really doesn't happen. You don't get just shot forward. It's not how it happens. It happens really slowly after all of this almost suffering. Almost really hard legwork that takes place. And then all of those blooming things come out, just like a flower blooming out of the crack in the concrete, right? So that's not the intro, but kind of.
Oh my God. I was just thinking that what you're describing reminded me of what Jason shared with us on the last podcast episode about the suffering. That piece is, I think, something we don't think is going to be a part of this springing forward of this momentum. It's like the thing that we overlook the most, but suffering is a huge part of how we actually move forward.
It's vital, really. I mean, we talk a lot, we love metaphors over here in BariNation, so bear with us as we sprinkle in as many as we can. But it's like, you can't have the sun without the rain. You need those dark days. You need those like really tough moments in order to go forth and have those really sunny moments and the good moments. So I'm really excited to dive in and like hear more about how you're moving through, Jody.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm so excited. But to that point now, it really is, because it's like, you can't really see the light unless you're standing out here in the dark for a minute. Mm-hmm. You're too close. So,
yeah. Well, and this is such a integral part, like Nat said, of the journey, that people need to know that it's not just them. They're not the only ones that are feeling like they are being held back by something, or that they're going through something, or that they do need that, that sunlight at the end of the rain. So.
Yep. Well, let's do it. Let's just dive in.
Really?
Do it.
All right, Jody, my friend. So where would you like to start? Where feels like a natural entry point to kind of help share with people how you are moving forward through all of the other stuff that's going on?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you a story about what happened on Sunday. I'll tell you like a story and we'll just see where it takes us. So, I struggle with my mental health. I have for my entire life. And the seasonal depression this year was gnarly. It hit me hard. And I found, especially the past few weeks, I'm slowly kind of climbing that ladder out. As the sun comes up, so am I. As so many of us kind of do, we kind of emerge with the spring. And I have been feeling super stuck, honestly, and maybe even isolated and just very much hermiting into myself. And so I was reading a book and I thought, well, what's one thing, just one that I can do today that might feel good? And so I ended up thinking of where in life where have I felt most like me? Because I think too, with this whole bariatric journey, obviously we lose weight. Yeah. Okay, cool. Like that's not the interesting part. The interesting part that comes in after losing the weight is like this whole other level of dreams for yourself that all of a sudden become possible. Like it like becomes unlocked within you. And it's like, oh crap, I could do anything. And then that I'm like, well, nope, I'm not doing anything because I can do anything. Like, so I'm just not gonna do anything. And I get stuck. So I feel most myself in nature. It's where I've always felt. And so I went on a hike this past weekend because I was feeling really stuck. And we had a movement accountability group that I actually host in our membership community. And it's one of my favorite groups. And I said to them, guys, I'm feeling like a big old imposter because here I am leading this movement accountability group and I haven't moved my body intentionally in like 4 weeks other than teaching. And so for me, I hadn't done anything for me in like a month, maybe even more. And lo and behold, everyone in the group was like, oh my God, I'm so glad you said that. Because same. And right. Because we're all on the same page. Mm-hmm. Everyone has their crap that they're dealing with. Everyone has big, huge things happening in life. Mercury's in the microwave again. And so I went on a hike. This is a really long story, but it's short, I swear. I went on a hike and I just decided to have fun. I'm a hippy dippy doodah. So I was hugging trees because, fun fact, trees have a literal vibrational energy that's tangible for humans, and it literally lifts our own vibrational energies. So I was hugging trees, I was climbing rocks, I laid in the grass, and I just felt like a kid again. And it got me thinking, and I looked back and I was like, wow, I did like 4 miles and I didn't even notice. And so I've been thinking about it since then. And I was like, well, and I'm bringing back to movement, I guess. But for me, movement really does go hand in hand for me with all of the other parts of bariatric life, because it kind of brings me back into my vessel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And gives me a minute to think a little more clearly. But it's just finding the little thing that you have fun doing and not viewing it as something you have to do and then doing it. So
the cool thing about that, the way you brought that up, though, is that a lot of people associate movement with, I've got to put on a 60-pound backpack. I've got to climb a mountain. I've got to go intentional hard at it and run half a marathon, or I'm not worth a shit. If I don't do this at this high intensity, impactless, all these things, it's not worth doing at all. Or I'm going to, it's not like I shorted myself, or I shorted the journey. I shorted. But it legitimately can be, like you said, you don't have to go crazy. You can go out and do the thing. Like you said, it was easier for you to do 4 miles going at it the way you did, because movement is movement regardless. So you don't have to be out there running sprints and running hills and climbing over shit. Like, it doesn't have to be all that. You can go out and just move your body in a slow, leisurely way, in a way that you can appreciate not only lifting your own spirits, but spending time outside, which is what the whole goal of that is in the first place, especially if you're trying to get on the other side of something, like seasonal depression, like so many people are. And I think one of the things that we don't think about is, we go through seasonal depression even before we have surgery, but there's always a way to numb it. There's always a way to get around it. There's always a way to not think about it as closely. And that's with food. You get on the other side of surgery, you've got that mental clarity that we all strive for and realize that comes, and we didn't even know that was coming until other people started talking about it. And you're left with not only no way to mask what you're feeling, but you got to feel all that shit, because you have the mental capacity to actually take it all in and unpack those boxes that you don't even want to touch. So it's very hard. It's different when, you got the food fog and you got everything else going on. You can just go through the drive-thru and everything's better for a minute. And, it's not that way post-op, and it's hard.
And I was leading a pre-op and a beginner bariatric group in BariNation. I do that every Wednesday. It's my favorite day of the week because I love that stage. And we had someone who was just considering surgery, never hadn't signed up with a surgeon, nothing. And, we talked about food, like, how do you handle food situations? How do you move through that? And everyone was so unanimous that once you have the surgery, that veil, and it really is a veil, it's a veil about food, but that veil is lifted once you have surgery. And I'm not saying it comes immediately, but it does come. And I think, to your point, Jody, it's like you have more capacity to say, hey, something just doesn't feel right. And okay, what will make me feel right? And what can I do to make myself feel right without food, without that veil being over me, like you said, Jason, of I'm just going to go to the drive-thru. I'm just going to, sit here and numb myself out. That veil is gone, and we can actually go do the things that we love, like moving our bodies, being intentional, being mindful, because that's what we wanted to do all along, really.
Well, and what's kind of blowing my mind is thinking about how all of us have kind of sprung forward this season. It all started with stillness. It all started with getting quiet, right? We all realize something is wrong. Something is not right. And I don't know what it is, but I'm not going to feel settled until I kind of figure this out. And we're all ready to take a step forward, to move forward in our journeys, in our lives. But we all kind of had this moment of stillness, and we had to ask ourselves these questions, and we gave ourselves the permission and the time, the space, the grace to actually answer them. I mean, Jason, I'm thinking about your 8-hour drive where you had all of these epiphanies. You could not have moved forward had you not had that moment of clarity and stillness.
Yeah, it it worked out because Sarah had work stuff she was doing, so she had the laptop out and she was just, clicking away, and I just kind of took that time to zone out and think about it. But it legit did take that. And since that trip, what I've been finding, like we talked about the other night, I've intentionally been taking time to rest in between doing stuff because I know if I don't, I'm going to be exhausted. Like that, this weekend was such a whirlwind. I thought in my mind ahead of time, I was like, oh man, 2 events will be cool. Right across, we got 15 minutes away from each other, back and forth, no problem. I'll be jockeying and stuff, no big deal. But it really was a big deal. Like in the moment, I just kind of blew through it because I knew I had to do what I had to do. So, when you're kind of in the moment, you don't think as much about it. But when you get done, you're just like, with my ass, like I was like, man, it was a little tougher than I thought it was going to be, because you have to make sure, like in the moment, you're thinking, you're intentionally, I got to spend time here, I got to do this, I got to be with this group, I got to do these things, and I got to move over here. Like you're kind of running through your calendar in your mind, so you're not really focusing on the fact of what it's putting yourself through until you settle down from doing the things, and then it all just kind of piles on you, and you're like, oh, okay, well let me just knock out real quick because I don't have anything left.
Yes. And the thing I'm like, oh my God, you guys are like on it. And here's the thing.
I hope you guys are watching because Jody was like ready to pounce.
She was like a kid at Christmas waiting on her parents to get out. She was so wound up.
And my face is beet red, everybody, if you're listening. And here's what struck me just now, Jason, when you were talking, is that you were talking about being in the moment, and then how being in the moment, all you were doing is thinking about the future. So there you are, sitting in the moment. And I can't help myself but bring yoga into everything, because it's like I've made it my entire personality. Same with bariatric surgery, in a beautiful way. But fun fact, okay, guys, fun fact. Yoga movements, obviously, we've westernized it over here in the United States to be this, oh, how flexible can I be? Can I put my leg, behind my head, whatever. But in actuality, those movements, the yoga asana is what they're called, they were only created a couple hundred years ago. Yoga is like millennia old, and they were created to help bring us into stillness and into the moment, because the really cool thing, and I just love talking about being in the moment, but the really cool thing about being genuinely in the moment, where for a moment, for this second, the past can kind of dissipate for a second, the future can kind of dissipate. That's where the magic happens. That's when your consciousness expands. That's when you can tap into, like April, like you were saying, something's not right. Something's not right. What is it? So when you can take a minute, connect to your breath even, or like on a drive, whatever it is, and for a minute, just focus, or not even focus, try and not focus. The things that come up are like mind blowing. And I think for me, personally, within this bariatric journey, I've gotten to know myself as a human, because for so long, who I was my weight, was who I was what meal I was going to be eating next, or which fast food places I was going to get and then go home and binge in secret or in private. And that was my life, just personally. And so since surgery, what probably the greatest gift I've received is getting in touch with my values and with myself, and slowing down and utilizing, when something feels off, it's not like I do this every time, but that would be really great. I'd be in such a great headspace. But when something doesn't feel right, my word for the year was align. I wanted to be in alignment with the self as much as I could this year. And I've made some huge self-discoveries through stopping and saying, well, does this align with the self right now? Whether that's, a huge decision or what you're eating for dinner. And that's like the power of the moment, because anything can only take place in the moment. It's the only thing that's guaranteed for us. Decisions, everything.
I relate to that so much. I think I've told this on the podcast before, but I I had an existential crisis in regards to pizza because I thought I loved pizza. I thought pizza was one of my favorite foods because I would, before surgery, I'd buy myself a medium pizza, breadsticks, chicken, and just smash it in one night by myself. So I was like, pizza's my favorite food. I had pizza like maybe a year or so after surgery. And I, ate a slice or what I could eat of that slice of pizza. And I just was like, I was very underwhelmed. I was like, oh, this was pretty good, I guess, like whatever. And then I went home and I was like, do I not like pizza? And I was like, what do I even like? And it really spiraled. I really spiraled. I was like, do I even like floral prints? Do I even like, the color blue? Like, it was just like this snowball of like, who the hell am I? And that I relate to you so much, Jody, in the fact that like, 2.5 years post-op, I'm starting to actually feel like myself for the first time in my entire life, my 29 years of living. I actually feel like myself. And it did come in the stillness. It came from going on walks every day. It came from making sure my phone was on do not disturb at 9 p.m. Like, it came from all of these small, quiet moments where I could actually kind of rebuild myself. And that's something that people just don't talk about with this.
Well, yeah, it's an identity crisis to a point, because you get to a point you realize, am I the person that I was forced to be because they only have floral prints for women in my size? Pizza is something big people are supposed to like, and if you don't like it as a big person, then who the hell, what kind of person are you? One person doesn't like pizza. Like, every big person likes pizza. And, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, when you're at a certain size and they only have those things, and now that we're smaller and we're like, well, I don't even know what the hell my style is, because I have options now where I didn't have options before. Like, when I originally, got big and like the big and tall stores, before they started really carrying more trendy clothes, it was banded bottoms and polyester pants. Like, that was it. And as a young person who's big, who the hell's going to wear polyester pants and a banded bottom polo? Like, nobody. That's who. And they were usually brown or, khaki or whatever. In the pants side, like, who the hell, like, brown polyester pants for somebody that's not 60 is not the move. So, it's one of those things, like we say, we're pigeonholed into a certain area. We can only do what's offered. So, once we finally do start shedding the weight and realizing, first off, you do start snowballing it, because it does get to a point where you're like, well, what else is there that is different?
Well, and this really puts into focus something I've been trying to figure out for a while now. Because when we talk about like, oh, let's spring forward, let's move forward in our journey. But if you don't know who you are, what am I springing to? Is what I'm springing to even something that I want or that I value or that is aligned to me? So it can be a really scary position to know at your core, I'm ready for something different. I'm ready to move forward. But if I don't know myself, where the hell am I moving? Like, what direction am I moving? And I took so many steps in a direction only to realize, oh, wait, I don't actually want that. And then I would beat myself up. I would be ashamed about that. It's like, why am I wasting my time? Oh, I thought I wanted this. And then you second guess yourself. It's like, oh my, again, like, I can see now how this like push to like spring forward and let's make progress can actually be terrifying and can keep people stuck, because you don't know what the hell you're springing to or into.
It's the perfect analogy for this is chess, not checkers, because chess is well thought out. You think about it before you move. You got other alternatives. You got options. And if, like you said, if you're not comfortable in who you are now, you could possibly spring forward in a direction that is not aligned to your journey or not something you really want to do. Then you got to spend the energy backtracking to figure out, to start back to square one again, to then lay the foundation for who you really are before you make the move forward that actually benefits you.
And I almost want to, I almost want not challenge that statement, but reframe a little bit here, in that the cool thing about the moment of now is that we always have it. It's always there. Every second you're alive, you're in the moment of now. It's all we've got, really. And so you take all this time and you go down this one path, right? Like I've done it. I've done it in my career. I've done it in my personal life. Things are crazy. I'm making big shifts over here. Life is just nutty, cuckoo banana brains. And whatever, either way.
Yes. And
I've taken all these steps this way. And because of that, and because I can take this moment right now and reflect on that, I now know which way I'm actually going to move forward, this way. And I'm not ever back at square one. We're never back at square one. And that's the cool part. But it's so easy to feel like we are when it's like all of a sudden something becomes so clear to us, and maybe we've not been in alignment with that. But one of my favorite mantras that I use often for myself, it's one of my little rituals, oh man, what is it? I say it almost every day. I honor who I am right now. I look forward to who I'm becoming, and I forgive myself for not knowing what I didn't know.
Wow. That's powerful.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I forgive myself for not knowing what I do now.
So, okay, this fits with what I was thinking, because as we were having this conversation, I was trying to think, like, what was preventing me from making these present moment decisions right before surgery, and what is kind of keeping me now from making present moment decisions, right? And what keeps coming back for me is this fear of shame, and I do have a deep rooted fear that people aren't going to like the real me. So I always keep pieces of the real me back, right? This is just how I operate. You guys all know this. But that is
shocking revelation that we're having.
I know.
What?
I am shocked.
Yeah, I would never believe it.
This is my surprise face.
This is new information.
My point in all of this is to say that what has really helped me spring forward is having these moments of silence, connecting with the present, and letting go. Well, maybe not letting go, but learning to live through the shame that I was going to feel when I made a decision and then realized that decision was not right, when I had to pivot. And I had to come to the realization that I'm never not going to feel shame. That's just a human feeling. That's a human emotion, right? But what I was actually scared about is that people would judge me or people wouldn't like me because of that shame, because I had made a mistake. What has been so powerful for me and what has given me this gift is really community, and all of you guys on this screen, because I have been able to go to each one of you and say things like, well, I'm really scared to do this because I might fail, or I didn't do this right. I made a mistake. I messed up. And to have you reflect back to me, nothing different than what you ever have, right? It was just like the evidence that I needed of like, oh, this shame is just something that I'm feeling. It's not something that they feel. I haven't let them down. I'm not a different person. And they've actually gotten to get to know me a little bit more because I have been a little bit vulnerable in my willingness to experience this shame kind of publicly.
Yeah.
And if we don't get there, it's going to be really hard for us to move forward. And I know, Jason, we experienced a very powerful moment at the Just Be You Awards. I have come to you guys, like, I can't leave. I can't go on vacation. I can't do any of this stuff, right? All, like, we've all had these. I mean, Jody, I said something to you a few weekends ago about like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, right? Like, oh my God. And for you to be like, oh, cool. I don't either.
Same.
Cool. And you're just like, oh, okay. So I'm not like this weird monster. And But if you can't get to the point where you know that you can live through that shame, it's going to be really hard for you to move forward in a direction, in any direction, because even if it's not the right direction, that's okay. Now you know that's not it, so you can pursue another avenue. You can go another direction.
Well, and we're always going to be harder on ourselves than the people that we're afraid of being hard on us. So we know this, and April, I know you're the worst because you and Sarah are the same person. So you guys both do that to each other. But honestly, it's the same as the that's kind of where we get the pause and pivot mindset from. Is you take a pause, you assess the situation, and then you pivot. And pivoting, it's just another way of moving forward from where, like Jody said, you can move forward from where you are, wherever that may be, and that's your pause and pivot.
And I want to go back to something that was said about that forgiveness piece, or that acknowledgement of not knowing something in the past. I worked last year with Rodolfo. He's another one of our experts in the BariNation community. He's so intelligent. Yeah, snaps for Rodolfo, man. He's amazing. If you don't follow him, he's on Instagram. He's in the BariNation community. He's constantly holding classes. But I worked with him one-on-one, and a part of his method of coaching, but it's more than coaching. He calls himself a wellness coach. That's not quite what it is. But there was a part where, I was speaking to my child self, and I literally had to tell her, you don't have the resources that I have now. And so when those feelings, April, when those come up, for myself, I just have to say, I didn't have the resources that I have now. I just didn't know what I know now. And I didn't have the tools that I have now. And that has been really powerful to spring forward as well, because you get those fears of, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. But every path that you take, you're collecting different tools to have in your arsenal. And so that's why pausing and pivoting is so important. We say it all the time, pause and pivot, because we don't know what we're doing, but we're moving forward regardless.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I can't tell you how many times a day these days, because I'm personally in a big season of change, just big changes happening all around every freaking corner of life. I've got hairs in front of my face coming at me. Excuse me. But, and again, here's a little yoga plug for you guys. But just like in yoga or in movement in general, where we're most vulnerable is during a transition. Because when you transition, there's less limbs on the ground. I'm really getting metaphor-y, but in the middle of a transition, and I mean, bariatric surgery in and of itself is one transition after the next, forever and ever and ever, and it never ends. And that's what's so fun about healing, almost. Maybe not fun for everyone, but this is where I get a little nerdy about healing and trauma. I'm a trauma-informed yoga instructor by trade, and it's never ending, which means we're going to ebb and we're going to flow, and sometimes we're going to be riding these highs because of all this work that we did down here in these lows, and we're going to dip in and out of it, and just because we have that knowledge means we know inside we didn't know. We just didn't know. I mean, I say that once a day. Oh, I just didn't know. I just didn't know what I didn't know. But what I do know is it's going to keep going. We're going to still get to keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it tracks beautifully with the disease of obesity. Mm-hmm. Right? The disease is chronic and lifelong, and it will continue to present in our lives even once we lose the weight. right? It's always going to be there, and it is going to present in our lives in different ways. So it makes sense that what once worked will no longer work because the disease has shifted. It's changed and it's morphed. But what I'm starting to realize is that as I build this toolbox and as my disease morphs and changes, I still need all of those tools, because sometimes it's going to crop up and it's like, oh, yeah, no, I need a hammer for this. Oh, cool, I have it. And then a new problem will appear and it's like, oh, I need a completely different tool for this. But I don't panic. It helps me keep the temperature lower, because all the work that I've done is not for loss. I have built a home. Now I'm learning to maintain the home. My home is always here. And the more I can get to know every nook and cranny of my home, right? The more I can stay with myself and find these moments of stillness, the quicker I can act when something needs to be addressed. So instead of just sitting there looking at my roof, my hole in the roof, right? Or whatever, I can go, oh, okay, that needs to be addressed. What do I need? What do I need? What do I need? And if I didn't have a place to go and get my tool, I would be lost. And again, it continues to come back to the community for me. It continues, honestly, it comes back to BariNation, because every time something new crops up and I need to go to my Home Depot, right? My Home Depot is the BariNation, it's the community. And it's where I can go, oh, I need, this is the thing I need to solve for. And I have an entire community going, oh, I've had that problem before. This is the tool I use. This is right. This is the person. This is the thing. Wonderful. Excellent. Point me to that row, right? Point me to that aisle so I can go pick what I need. But if I was not connected, if I didn't know my house well, it would be really difficult for me to pick out the tools that I need to spring forward. Jody, what are some other things that you are doing in your life as you move forward? Are there other things that you would recommend people tap into?
Oh, yeah. Well, for me, it's really has been getting to know myself. And we do that through so many different ways. And I'll just take it back to the community, because you just mentioned it. But even within BariNation, I've sort of begun to find some of my groups that I kind of use as my home base. Like, okay, each week I know, for example, every other week there's a complication support group, and I went through some really intense complications. I was on a G-tube, didn't know if I'd ever really be able to ingest food orally again. And they were preparing me to be kind of hooked up to a pole for most of my life moving forward. And I remember in those moments, the community as a whole, and you guys specifically, is what kind of kept me going. And it was the light that I needed, because the thing is that the one thing we all have in common is, well, there's a lot of things we all have in common, but the one thing that I think as a human existence we all have in common is all of the reasons not to do something, all of the reasons to come up with that we give ourselves to kind of resist, right? Resist the,
Are you talking about rationalization? How we rationalize?
I might be. I did just, I'm reading this book. It's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. I made everyone get it. But it's mind-boggling in the way of like, oh, duh. And what it's talking about is that we all have all of the reasons why we shouldn't do what we know is going to be the next right thing. Because I really think everyone inside of them has this thing that they're yearning for, whether it's a big dream, a big purchase, a big life move, a big even coming to terms with something internally. We all have something inside of us that's just dying to get out. And we come up with 100 million reasons to not let it do just that. And so some of the things that I've been finding is, one of the tools that I've been using, Mel Robbins, I'm sure everyone's heard of her. And if you haven't, look her up. She has this book, 5-Second Rule. And really simple rule, but it's like this idea that in your brain chemistry makes a decision or stops a decision from being made within 5 seconds. And really it's 3 seconds. And so her philosophy is, okay, when you think of something that you want to do that you know is going to push you forward or spring you forward towards whatever it is, that thing inside that I know, if you're listening to this, I know you have that thing inside of you that you want to do, that you want to achieve, that you want to figure out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you physically move your body, literally, even if it's like, okay, I'm readjusting, I'm wiggling, and then you start it, whatever that looks like. And the fun part about starting something is that that's the hardest part of anything, is starting. And so if you can do that, and starting can look literally as simple as, okay, in the morning, I'm going to actually get out of bed when my alarm goes off today. That's just going to snowball. And you're never going to be able to stop. You're just going to keep moving forward. That was a ramble.
This is the struggle story of my freaking life right now. I know I have to do all of these things, and I am just so resistant to doing them. And
that's cute that you said right now, though.
What do you mean?
That you only mean right now. Because how many times did I tell you that we needed to just start recording the podcast before we actually did it?
Oh, you would bring that up. You would bring that up.
I'm just saying, like there's been seasons of this, but go ahead.
You're trying to get me to admit to way more things than I'm ready to admit to on this podcast, sir.
But there are seasons of it. I mean, for 10 fucking years, I was battling with myself about having surgery. For an entire decade of my life, I would say, oh, I should have surgery. No, but I'm not going to because fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Oh, but
rationalization.
I really want surgery. No, you don't, because fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many seasons of it, and they look different every single time, which is why it's hard to catch it.
Absolutely.
Well, the interesting thing about rationalization is that we can do it for anything. It is infinite. And what I have had to embrace in this current leg of my journey is part of my life's work is battling the disease of obesity. It is never going away. I will never be cured. And I am so still fucking mad about that. I am just furious, right? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Really? This is the gift that was bestowed on me, is a flippin' disease that's never going away.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, oh my God, I am giving away so much energy and time being mad at something I cannot change. So instead of me thinking about, well, why did this happen? What? No, it's a flippin' disease. Like billions of other people, it's something, it is just a card that I was dealt, and there is no deck to put it back in. So I need to let go of this anger, of this resentment, of this because it's not going to do it any good. It's not going to make it go away. So, my life's work is multifaceted. It is multi-pronged. Whereas I think some people, there is one thing that they are called to do. Awesome. Well, I'm called to do something, but I am also required to do another. And that requirement is fight the disease of obesity. So I need to commit to that. That is the commitment. And I could choose not to. And a lot of people choose not to. And the disease will then run your life. That's just a fact. if you want to live your life a different way, if you don't want the disease to run your life, if you want to run your life, then that is the mindset shift that we have to make. And that is how we move forward when it comes to doing the work that the disease of obesity requires.
And the thing is that you, all of us, anyone listening, you're fucking worth it.
Mhm.
Like, you have all of this untapped potential inside of you, just like dying to burst out and open. And when you begin to allow yourself to maybe just once push past, well, it's raining, so I don't really want to do that. If just once, that's enough momentum for you to be, I mean, confidence in and of itself. I heard this quote once, and I've really clung to it. Confidence is the act of keeping promises to yourself. Because when you are able to successfully do that over and over again, I mean, holy shit, you guys, that's when you start taking chances. Like, for example, I committed this. I remember this like it was yesterday. It wasn't that long ago. It was in January, but I went to a BariNation class, and I went to it because I promised myself I would. And I knew I really needed it. It was around the holidays. I was struggling, just all the attention, right? From various things about weight always comes up in the holidays. And I was struggling, and I said, okay, Jode, I know you're on vacation, but promise yourself you're going to go to do this BariNation class, because that usually grounds me and I'm able to kind of collect my thoughts again. And everyone else has the same struggles, literally. And it's just so affirming. So I went to this BariNation class, and I felt so good about myself in that moment, I sent an application to this random eco lodge in Costa Rica without the necessary experience needed to host a yoga retreat. And now I'm hosting a yoga retreat in Costa Rica without the necessary experience, because I felt confident enough in myself, because I kept a promise to myself. And that was because of BariNation. That was a snowball effect for me, was keeping a promise, feeling confident, feeling a wave of confidence enough to do something just a little crazy. And then, by the grace of whoever's out there, here we are. And now I get to follow a passion and create a safe space for women to get to know themselves for 7 nights. What the hell? That never would have happened if I didn't keep a small little promise to myself.
It, as you were talking, Jody, it reminded me of children, right? I was a early childhood educator for a few years, and I had an interaction with one of my students about, they wanted to do the monkey bars or something. We'll just go with that, the monkey bars, and they told me almost every day, I really want to do this. I really want to do this, but I'm scared. I want to do this, but everyone's looking at me. And it was, a second grader, and I said, okay, well, cool. Like, you should just do it one day. Like, just do it. Just don't even think about anyone else. They're not watching. I kind of hyped him up a little bit because he needed it. So he comes back from recess. He goes, Miss Tierney, I went on the monkey bars today. That's amazing. I hope that you can get on the monkey bars again tomorrow. Yeah, I'm going to, because that was really fun. That was a promise that he had made to himself. He's going to get on the monkey bars tomorrow. Sure enough, the next day he comes back from recess. He goes, Miss Tierney, I went on the monkey bars again. And I was like, how was it? And he was like, oh, it was even better than yesterday. Right? So you're totally correct in what you're saying, Jody, but it goes back to what we were talking about before. It's our inner child saying we can't do that because fill in the blank. All we need is that little bit of confidence and trust in ourselves to do it. We talk all the time at BariNation about trust. This journey is about trusting ourselves first.
Yep.
And we should trust ourselves.
it's amazing to me how really, I guess if right, I'm trying to think about like, well, yeah, how do we summarize this powerful conversation? But what it kind of keeps coming back to is it's actually a very small action that can spring you forward in ways that you could never imagine. Right? It's small actions. It's finding moments of stillness in the present moment. It's not being afraid to experience some shame. And it is keeping those promises that we made to ourselves.
Yeah.
And what's so powerful about giving ourselves that quick moment of mindfulness, of slowing down to just notice the thoughts that are coming up, is that we get to decide to do that without judgment for a minute. It's not, I'm constantly, your inner self-talk is always going to shoot you down, but we get to make a conscious decision to say, okay, for right now, I'm going to allow myself to feel whatever it is I'm feeling, and I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to let it happen. And in doing some of that, some of the hardest truths come out, but then some of the most amazing realizations happen as well. And then you get to be you for some of us for the first times in our entire life, because the disease of obesity takes a huge part of us. I mean, that was my identity for a really long time.
I just, these conversations I always go into these conversations thinking they're going to go one way, and then they go in a completely different, better, amazing direction. You know what I mean? Like,
and to think you were nervous, Jody. I was like, it's going to be a conversation.
I was sweating bullets up here. The reason I'm wearing a tank top.
Oh my God. Well, friends, we're going to continue this conversation in BariNation. So if you'd like to continue it with us, head over there to the membership community. Jody, where can people connect with you if they would like to do so?
Yeah, you can reach out to me. I'm on Instagram, Jody B Yoga. I'm also, if you look up Santosha, Costa Rica, you'll find my retreat. We have a little website page there, or just find me on Instagram. And that's probably the best place to reach me. And yeah, gosh, I can't thank you enough. This was so fun.
We told you this would be amazing. And you trusted us, so thank you for trusting us. But now you know. Always. Jody, is there one piece of wisdom or nugget that you would like to leave our listeners, our friends, and our watchers with when it comes to springing forward? If there's one thing that they take away from this conversation, what do you hope it is?
There's one thing I hope anyone can take from this conversation about springing forward. I think it would be to allow yourself to slow down and trust in the sureness of the soil beneath you. Because it's got you. It's got your back.
It does. Jody, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been profound, an amazing conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Jason, my friend, you want to take us out?
Yes, ma'am. Jody, like April said, thank you so much. Your knowledge, your wisdom, your time. We appreciate all of that. You're being vulnerable is another thing that we appreciate you for, because a lot of people, it's hard for them to do, especially on the first time being on the podcast. So thank you for that. And to the community, as I always say, we cannot do this without you. We appreciate all the things that you have done for us, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, the support, and telling people to, that we're here, because helping people, even the smallest corners of the internet need our help. So the more people you can send our way, the better off we will all be, because helping you guys helps us more than you would ever imagine. Do not forget to leave us ratings on your favorite podcast players, as well as the YouTube channel. And for the what used to be Anchor app, which is now the Spotify app, you can still leave us voice recordings that we can incorporate into future episodes of the podcast, because we love highlighting you guys as much as possible. And just remember, at the end of the day, you've got this, we've got you, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Bye, friends.
Bye, everybody.